Hi, welcome back. This is Ashish, and previous video we covered what is infrastructure as a code, and here we'll see what tools we can use. So as of now, infrastructure as code sounds like something that can answer all of our problems rather than in terms of provisioning an infrastructure. So what tools we can use to apply infrastructure as a code? So if you'll make a list, it consists of Azure CLI, Azure PowerShell, Azure Resource Manager templates, Ansible, Terraform, and Azure SDK. One by one we'll see. So Azure CLI. You can use Azure CLI to connect to Azure and run administrative commands on Azure resources. As with other command line interfaces, well, Azure CLI is a command line interface, AZ CLI or Azure CLI. We can run commands directly from a terminal, or we can add commands to a bash script or a PowerShell script. The Azure CLI runs on Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. We can also access it from the Cloud Shell. So if we'll see, okay, if we'll run the command to create a resource group with Azure CLI, if you would type in the same resource group while creating a new resource group, like I'm creating the AZ group create, and in the name section I'm giving Azure test Azure RG. If I'll run the same command every time, this command would give me the same resource group back every time. So this command becomes an idempotent operation item. So Azure PowerShell. Azure PowerShell is a module that we use that we add to Windows PowerShell or PowerShell core. We can then connect to our Azure subscription and manage resources. Azure PowerShell requires PowerShell to function. PowerShell provides services like the shell window, command passing. Azure PowerShell adds the Azure specific commands. And Azure PowerShell is also available two ways: inside a browser via Cloud Shell. It can be installed locally on Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. In both the cases, we have two modes to choose from. We can use Azure PowerShell in interactive mode, in which we manually issue one command at a time, or we can use it in scripting mode, where we run a script that would consist of multiple commands. Azure CLI and Azure PowerShell are roughly equal in terms of what they can do. When you are deciding between the Azure CLI and Azure PowerShell, choose the one that best fits your team's needs or skills. For example, if you use PowerShell to administrate Windows, you will quickly become comfortable with using Azure PowerShell. If you write bash scripts to administrate Linux, you would prefer the Azure CLI. So it all depends upon your choice. Next is Azure Resource Manager templates. Azure Resource Manager is the interface for managing and organizing cloud resources. Think of Resource Manager as a way to deploy cloud resources. If you are familiar with Azure Resource Group, you know that they enable you to treat sets of related resources as a single unit. Resource Manager is what organizes the resource groups that let you deploy, manage, and delete all of the resources together in a single action. A Resource Manager template precisely defines all the Resource Manager resources in a deployment. You can deploy a Resource Manager template into a resource group as a single operation. So Resource Manager template is a JSON file, making it form of declarative automation. I'll try to make separate video series on Azure Resource Manager template deployment, but as of now we would only stick to Azure DEVOPS. Okay, and if you go further, we would have the Ansible. Well, Ansible is an open source product that's sponsored by Red Hat. It automates cloud provisioning, configuration management, and application deployments. We can use Ansible to provide Azure resources, to provision Azure resources such as Azure virtual machines, containers, networks, and even complete cloud infrastructure. We can also use Ansible to configure Azure resources after they are provisioned. In addition to Azure, Ansible supports other public clouds and private cloud frameworks. We can run Ansible commands directly, or we can write playbooks to deploy more complex configuration. A playbook in Ansible is a YAML file, making it form of a declarative automation, like we have the script through Azure PowerShell deployment, Resource Manager template deployment. We have Ansible that we can add a playbook in a YAML file. Extension would be .yml to in a form of declarative automation. Then next we have Terraform. Terraform by HashiCorp, and it is also an open source tool that provisions and manages cloud infrastructure. Terraform's command line interface provides us with a simple way to provision Azure resources such as virtual machines, containers, and networks. Terraform generates an execution plan that describes what it will do to reach the desired state. We can review this execution plan and then run the plan to apply the configuration. As the configuration changes, Terraform determines what has changed and creates incremental execution plans to update only what's necessary. In addition to Azure, Terraform supports other public clouds. So we'll typically write Terraform code in HCL. HCL is the name of the language that Terraform uses, but we can also express the Terraform configures by using JSON. So both HCL and JSON are forms of declarative automation. I forgot the HCL full form. It's not the company, it's the name of the language that Terraform uses. Next is Azure SDK. The Azure SDK enables you to access and manage Azure resources from application code by using favorite programming languages. It can be any programming language that you are competent at. The Azure SDK is available for languages such as Java, Node, Python, Ruby, PHP, .NET, and Go. We can also use a REST API to access Azure resources from any programming language. So, we all know what tools we can use, but where can I run the infrastructure code? So, we can run the infrastructure code from a terminal window or a PowerShell, Cloud Shell, or a CI/CD pipeline using, including the Azure pipelines. Okay, this was regarding the tools. In the next section, we will see how does Terraform work. We'll see some of the how a Terraform file is structured, what's in a Terraform plan, and then we'll see the resources, how they can be used, the output values, the Terraform settings, and commands that we'll need to initialize, apply, or plan the Terraform deployment. And then we will proceed further. So there's a lot to cover. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you and have a great day.